Okay, now we have to return to reality. I know you guys are like really anxious to start painting inside of Substance Painter, and you're like, oh yeah, here we go. But here's the deal. I need you guys to return to reality. What makes things real is a reference. Us judging scale, judging dirt, and if you go back to reality, it's going to look so much more realistic, as opposed to just globbing a bunch of dirt down on the ground and making it look as best you can and go, oh yeah, that looks photoreal. No, photoreal is always going back to photo reference and comparing back and forth and taking away and adding to until you get to see what you saw on the day when we were out walking around. The greatest artists on this planet are always going back to the world of nature and the reality of what they see in the real world to mimic what they see in the CG world, and that's what brings it to life. So we are going to do some Photoshop prep, and what we're going to be creating is what I call a collage, and we'll be creating a stamp, and we'll also be creating a mask. So these are a whole bunch of different things that we're going to create from our reference images. So I'm going to go ahead and open up our reference images here. If you go to your reference materials, we have a whole bunch of images in here, and I don't want to use all of them, obviously. So I'm going to grab 2167, and I don't need this one. Actually, let me grab this one, 2168. I will grab this guy right here. This guy, this guy, this guy. Let's go grab that guy. And what else do we have here? I already have a picture of that. Let's see here. I'll grab this. And maybe this. Maybe this. And what else we got here? Let's grab this kind of rustic stuff. I'm going to top, and that should be it. And so I'm going to go ahead and grab all these here. Okay, so the first thing that I like to do, if I'm going to try to extract alpha or masking areas of what I have here, is I usually like to come in here and do my best to kind of flatten the perspective out of what it is that I see. So one of the really cool tools you can do for that is this called Perspective Crop Tool. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And I'm using the 2187 file here, and I'll just go ahead and drag out a perspective, and I'm going to go ahead and put this into areas that I know are the four corners. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of get that going, and there we go. And you can see the camera has a perspective. There's still a little bit of possible barrel lens distortion, which is that sort of like wide look, but I'm not too worried about that. So I'm going to kind of get this to that, and then once you have this selected as the four corners, you can drag out these ends, this middle dot between the corners, and grab as much information as you possibly can. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. And that should do it, and I'm going to hit enter, and there you go. So you're actually looking at the image looking straight down, which is really cool. Now we obviously lost in some information here, but this gives us almost a perfect perspective straight down look as far as what it is that we were dealing with. So let's go take a look at some of the other images. Let's go to 2185 here. And again, I'll do the same thing. I'll use my perspective tool here and try to, again, I don't have all reference. It doesn't look like I have a good reference lines here for this. So this could be a little bit tricky. There is a little bit of wide angle distortion going on there, and this might do. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab that and drag it out like that and hit enter. And now you can see I got a more of a straight down, up and down look to this, which is going to be great for extracting textures or at least alpha masks. Here's another example. Again, do your best. You may not have access to perfect square perspective lines. I can see a little bit of it here. So for instance, if I draw out that perspective, and kind of, it's going to be a bit tricky to do. And you could have snapping on here. So if you turn off the snap, you won't see it snapping to the edge or nothing like that. So I'm going to try to do my best here to kind of get a perspective here. And this is not exactly correct. I'm going to do my best. to kind of get it the way that I think it is, and then I'll pull this up, pull this over, and from what I can tell, the perspective isn't correct, so again, I'll just drag this maybe like right here. Feel out the perspective. Does that feel like is what you're getting or not? It's hard to tell, but I can go ahead and kind of pull that over. Maybe I need to pull this out a little bit. You'll sense it. You'll sense the perspective shift in here as you kind of move this up and down. Does that feel like it's moving in parallel? And then go ahead and enter. So there's again a little bit flatter. You can see it didn't work perfectly because this circle should have been this shouldn't be an oval. This should be an actual shape. So I can come in here and hit Control T, or I can just lasso grab this part, hit Control T, and stretch this out if I wish, you know, and maybe squeeze this in a little bit. I'll be losing some resolution, but that's all right. There we go. All right, moving along. Here's another example. Again, I'll use my perspective tool here. This is going to be hard to kind of establish a line. Sometimes it's not. Like I can go ahead here, and again, I got this stupid snap on. I got turn snap off. And I'm just going to go ahead and do my best to kind of establish the edge of this here and feel it out. It'll feel like it's kind of draping correctly across the image itself. So I'm going to go ahead and just do that and hit enter and grab more information if I want. There we go. See how this is getting it sort of straight on perspective-wise? I mean, it's really a nice tool. I love the perspective tool. And here's a great example where it'll be a lot easier for us. So again, I'll just come in here and grab an edge like that. Actually, let's try using this for, again, this is annoying. You have to come in here and turn off snap and get into these edges here. And here we go. It's looking pretty good. And just feel it out. Does it feel correct? Does it feel like it's moving up and down the, you know, the perspective lines? Do they match up to a certain degree? So you can see what we can do. We can kind of stretch this out, pull this over, and I might need to take this perspective line, bring it down a little bit. You can see the lines. See how they're parallel to the edges? And I'll go ahead and hit enter. And woo, that one didn't work too well, did it? That's all right. I can always hit Control T. I just get the lasso grab here, Control T, and squeeze this information down, and so forth. So there we go. And it gives us a decent look to what we're dealing with. All right, moving along here. Another ground plane. I love these little like stain drips here. Really nice. So again, just do this. Come in here and do my best to get these lines parallel. You can see this sort of perspective that it's sort of feeling out. So I am looking almost directly straight up and down, but there is a slight perspective shift there, so I can go ahead and do what I can here and enter. There we go. And again, if I need to, I can hit Control T, you know, and if it's too wide in one area versus the other, you know, I could resize this too, but I'm just going to go ahead and cut off my shoes. I don't think I want to have them in there. There we go. So I have a nice chunk that looks juicy. All right, same thing here. This is going to be a very easy to pull off. I'm looking to getting this Mercury sign in here, and I can just kind of guesstimate the edges here by what I see. And just get to that corner and get to that corner. There we go. And just start to pull this up. You can see the perspective changing. And I don't think we need to get the outside, obviously. We could extract some of this down here. We could go the opposite way. But I'll go ahead and hit enter on that. And there again, we've got the perspective wrong. So again, I can do a image size if I want, and scale this up a little bit. So you got the width and the height. I can take the height and make this maybe, I don't know, 100 and, oops, disable this link here and put this to maybe 120. Hit OK. Actually, we can see the preview. See if it's starting to match up a little bit. And let's see if we can zoom out a little bit here. So there we go. So we'll go again 120, maybe 130. How about 140? Meh, we're almost there. That's good. 160. Hit OK. So now I have maybe a little bit too big. Again, I could just come in here, transform it, and bring it down to what I think is about right. Hard to say. Again, look at your other reference images as far as scale. Okay, so this one, again, very easy. We've already extracted this stuff here, so I'm really just worried about this area here. So again, I will do my best to get this kind of set up correctly. And there we go. And the key to kind of, as you kind of look at this, a way to keep the images perfectly in proper size in regards to when you render it is you can see that you've got rectangles here. But if I stretch this out, I start to get, let's see if I can pull this up here. I can start to get more of a square issue there. So you might have to extend one edge. And as you do that, your rectangles will become squares. And when you get this more like a square, you know that you're going to have it in proper scale, even though you're getting a lot of slack on this side. So if you see perfectly, if you see here, you can see rectangles, but if I pull this out, you know, and pull this down, I'm getting more of a square shapes. We'll see. Let's see what happens. Could be, yeah, it's a big disaster anyway. Okay. Yeah, it's a hit or miss. So I'm going to go ahead and transform that down a little bit to be about what I believe it should be. And I can also click here and hit my crop tool and just crop this image a little bit. Obviously, the area that I don't want to fiddle with. Okay. So this right here, same thing again. Use my perspective tool, perspective crop tool. And get that in the corners, like so. There we go. And then I'll just extend that out. See if I might need to move that in a little bit. There we go. You could feel it. You could feel the lines paralleling as you kind of move through this. Bring that down. Bring that up. And again, depending on what I do here, let's see if I kind of get that. There we go. All right, so we got that flat, and we will transform that, squeeze it down a little bit, so that we know this to be a perfect sphere. Obviously, that's too much, that's too little, probably like right about there, I'm guessing. There we go. And here's another one. Again, this is wash, rinse, repeat. I like the fact you guys might want to take a look at this. You know, just in general here, you know, it's good to get as much as you possibly can. Actually, I'm going to hit escape and zoom up a little bit, 'cause it's going to be very hard for me to get this going. So again, using my perspective crop tool, getting in here, getting to the edges here as best I possibly can. There we go. And you can move it across. Does it feel correct? Maybe a little inch in there. Again, I have this dumb, every time you do a new image, you have to turn off snapping. Turn off snap. There we go. So you can see if I move this here, I might have to change that perspective just a little bit. Bring this over here and here. It's looking good. And I'll drag that out, drag that up. This is going to be extremely helpful when we get into our reference building. And maybe this has to be just a hair down a little bit. There we go. Hit enter. All right. And again, I'm going to hit Control T. Let's do transform here. All right. And I'm just going to scale that down. Again, I could scale it up as well. Let's take a look at the resolution then that we're looking at here. Resolution holds up about right there, but doesn't go any further. Again, a lot of this I'm going to use this for reference here. Okay, so I'll go ahead and crop that. Whoops. Going to drag that down. Okay, and last but not least, right here, and again, just get my perspective. And, oops, let me hit undo. I'm using the wrong tool. Perspective crop, there we go. And get these lines lined up. And right there. And right there. See how that looks. It should feel, it's almost like directly spot on anyway. There's a little bit of a perspective there. See if we can kind of feel it out a little bit. Yeah, it's pretty much right on the ball. Let's move this up a little bit. Again, you got to go in here, turn off snapping, and get that lined up. Like so. You'll feel it. You just feel it. You know, as you kind of move through the shot. Does it feel correct? You know, as you do it. Alright, let's go ahead and do that and hit enter. Okay, so we have all these images, which are really awesome. And in the next video, we're going to go ahead and jump into how we're going to start to bring these all together, compile them under one Photoshop file for different maps that we're going to be used inside of Substance Painter.